In this video, I'm going to be reacting to the training methods of the takeover, Teofimo Lopez. Welcome to another episode of the Boxing Science React series, where we provide you with an in-depth analysis of the training methods of the champions, past, present and future. With this analysis, we say about the benefits of each training method, the little tweaks that you can make to start implementing it into your own training and coaching. In this episode, we're looking at Teofimo Lopez, two-weight world champion, former undisputed lightweight champion, and he's got some fantastic physical attributes: speed, power, explosiveness. He can do the 12 rounds. He's got a fantastic physique. Going to be really interesting taking a look at his training methods to see how he prepares for competition. So starting off with some infamous Rocky IV core training, some fantastic strength to do this. The only thing that I'd say with this is quite difficult to do. Oh, he's kicking his legs now. And at the top position, you end up in a quite kyphotic posture. Boxers wanted to avoid this because they're already in this position quite a lot during boxing training. Also, this is quite difficult to do, so it ends up working the lower back a little bit too much. So I suggest to do straight arm, straight leg sit-ups, leg lowers, core supine holds, GHR holds with the bands to increase that tension in that supine position whilst engaging the core in a safe and effective way. This exercise is good if you can do it. What I would say is not to go towards that end range where you're having your legs all the way up in the air, and to just make sure that you're providing them foundations first before trying a hard exercise like this. I guess that's Teofimo's been doing this from a young age. That's why he's so proficient and strong in it. So we've got the straight bar deadlift here. Pretty good technique, not the worst technique that I've seen. He's got a strong back, he's pushing through the lower body. He's doing it at a decent tempo as well. I think he's doing quite a few reps here. I normally limit deadlift reps, so 3 to 5 repetitions. I don't normally go on the straight bar as well, and the reason why is that boxers are quite tight in their shoulders. This is something that I'm going to mention during this episode as well. You notice with Teofimo, he's quite internally rotated through his shoulders. This is probably why he's got a bit of physio tape around his shoulders. Makes boxers struggle with their posture during a deadlift. So this can increase danger of a deadlift in terms of its effect on injury, but also reduce the weight load that can be lifted that can affect the strength adaptations that are induced. I'll be looking for Teofimo to be using trap bar instead, getting trap bar, getting their arms in neutral position, keeping them shoulder blades back. And also with the technique, even though it's a lot better than what I've seen boxers do in the past, it's still very knee dominant. Deadlifts are a hip dominant exercise. That means that the hips are flexed more than the knees. So the hips need to be above the knees. Whereas you can see in the starting position here with Teofimo, is sitting quite back into it. His hips are on line with the knees, is very upright in that bottom position. So what I'd like Teofimo to do here, shift the hips up a little bit, go a little bit further forward, pin those shoulder blades back, and then keeping the weight close, and performing the tempo here is fantastic as well. So Teofimo here is swapped the straight bar for the trap bar, which is excellent. Also what he's done, swap the deadlifts for a jump, which is excellent as well, because the trap bar jumps is one of the best exercises that you can do for boxing and combat sports. And the reason why is because it optimizes momentum. And that's what we want to do. We want to increase momentum as this transfers into powerful punches. The reason why it increases momentum so much and optimizes momentum so much, there's minimal deceleration in the movement. A trap bar deadlift has a start and end point. There's natural deceleration towards end of the lift. Whereas if you go a little bit lighter and add a jump to it, you're accelerating all the way through the movement. And this acceleration increases rate of force development and increases momentum. And then this can transfer into lower body explosiveness, which then transfers into a powerful punch. So the loading for Teofimo's trap bar jumps is fantastic as well. I'm guessing that this is around about 60 to 80 kilos, maybe even more than that. And the main issue that we see with trap bar jumps across social media is athletes actually underloading. We find that the optimum loading is around about 50% of a 1 rep max, which is around about their body weight. So guessing that Teofimo will be walking around anywhere between 70 and 80 kilos, he's got the loading strategy right. Now, one thing I would say is about the setup and also the bands attached as well. This exercise optimizes acceleration. So there's not really anything that we can do with the bands that will have a positive impact on it. In fact, I think that it's actually slowing him down. As you can see through the midpoint, it actually slows down a little bit. And this is probably due to the bands. And also just having that little bit of a rest in between each rep. Rest, reset, repeat, and make sure that you're firing up into that action. We often do feedback through a VBT device, whether that's a gym away or output sports, on peak velocity, mean velocity, or jump height, to give athletes targets, to create that speed and intent, but also to make sure that we've got the loading strategy right as well. So fantastic to see Teofimo using these. Just a few little tweaks to be made so they're optimizing the speed and power outputs during trap bar jumps. So we've got ab wheel rollouts here, a fantastic exercise for developing core strength and stability. A full stretch on the eccentric of the abdominal muscles, and then a really challenging concentric action as you're trying to pull that ab wheel in. This is why it's a really popular exercise. However, it's often done wrong. Now, Teofimo here is showing fantastic strength getting towards them end ranges, but we normally go at Boxing Science for the 80-20 rule, where we only go to 80% of the movement and 20% of the movement. This means that the core is switched on throughout each repetition. Whereas like what Teofimo is doing here is bringing the ab wheel all the way towards his knees. His abs are switched off. As he goes to 100% of the movement, and he's showing incredible strength here, so I'm not discrediting him from that, but what you can see is that his lower back is just drifting in. Teofimo is probably strong enough to go towards these end ranges. A lot of boxers aren't, a lot of athletes aren't. So when they go to them end ranges, you might start feeling it in your lower back, and you start feeling it more in your lower back, which causes discomfort, but also reduces the activation of the core muscles. So even though Teofimo is really good at this, really proficient at this, and probably still activating the core, might not apply to all people that are trying to replicate this. So next time you're on the ab wheel, start at 20% of the movement. Over the ab wheel, shoulders back and down, all your body weight is going through the ab wheel, and your hips are in, you're squeezing the glutes, and your core is really tense. Lower the ab wheel out to around about 80% of the movement, where your arms are probably around about a 45-degree angle, maintaining that hip position, core activation, and then pulling that ab wheel back in. Then also adding to this is adding a few different variations with the ab wheel, where it's going in and out. This is why I like the ab wheel so much, because there's a few different things you can do. Challenge your obliques a little bit more by adding a little bit of lateral flexion in there. Yeah, he looks really strong through his core. I think this is what we're going to see as a recurring theme during this episode. Okay, so we've got some tricep dip action here. As you know, Boxing Science, we don't do tricep dips. And the reason why is because they get that internal rotation into the humeral head. You can see this happening with Teofimo right in these bottom end ranges here. You can see in his shoulders that is quite internally rotated, very well developed through this area. Even though that there's a performance benefit in terms of Teofimo's stance and style as he turns in his shoulders quite a lot, when you're actually implementing this in terms of your strength and conditioning training as well, there's going to be a lot of strain going through this anterior shoulder complex. For a lot of boxers, if they're wanting to develop upper body strength or tricep strength, they might want to do some different variations here, whether that's banded press-ups, floor press with bands, rack press. These are different ways that you can increase the tricep activation through that pressing action, which will then transfer towards a powerful punch, but also is making sure that the shoulders are remaining in that neutral position, so it's not increasing any kind of tension through the shoulder joint, which might flare up in inflammation or injuries. And these injuries can be as minor as, like I say, a bit of inflammation and soreness, to as serious as shoulder surgery. So it's something that we're very mindful of at Boxing Science, to make sure that athletes are improving their physical performance whilst also reducing that likelihood of injury. So that final point there about the dips, Teofimo is actually showing a lot better variation of improving pressing strength through this exercise here. Doing press ups, but doing it on the push-up bars. The reason why the push-up bars are so good is because it's keeping my hands in neutral position, keeping elbows tucked in. It's going to be much friendlier on the shoulders than it would be a normal press-up or doing tricep dips. So it's showing really good strength here. If an athlete is struggling to keep the hips up, keep the feet a little bit wider, a few different variations that Teofimo is doing here is changing the tempo as it's going down, even on the concentric as well. This is great for time under tension, so if you're creating some strength foundations or wanting to boost strength endurance, doing it this way is fantastic. But if you're wanting to increase rate of force development, keep the concentric phase quick, because you're wanting to increase rate of force development and hand speed, so the concentric action needs to be quick. A great cue for doing this is either doing pause press-ups and then a fast concentric action, or doing a banded variation where we're increasing that resistance as we go through the action. This is forcing an athlete to increase acceleration, that speed and intent, all the way through to full extension of the arms. So Teofimo here is doing parachute sprints. Parachute sprints are a great way to increase that loading through the lower body whilst reducing impact forces whilst doing outdoor sprints. Now I think that Teofimo will really benefit from doing sprint interval training. A lot of his conditioning that I see is done outdoors, doing outdoor running, long kind of road run type. This doesn't really match his style. His style is fast and explosive, punches in bunches, a lot of power shots thrown. So he needs to tap into them anaerobic stores, that anaerobic glycolysis. And if he's doing long road runs all the time, then this isn't matching the demands of boxing in general, but definitely not the demands of Teofimo's boxing style. So it's actually good to see that Teofimo's doing some sprint training and repeated sprint training, because this will match the physiological demands of his boxing style. Doing it with a parachute is really interesting too. This is actually a method that we used when we didn't have access to the gym in 2020 to increase that loading through the lower body to try and spike increases in muscular acidosis, so then we can train muscle buffering capacity. And also there's a safety aspect to this as well, because when sprinting outside, especially in max effort sprinting, exposing yourself to increase impact forces. Increase impact forces, increase likelihood of fatigue, soreness and injury. Adding the parachute helps reduce that speed, but the effort remains the same. So that effort remains 100%, but we're reducing the running speed, so we're reducing them impact forces. So if you're wanting to do some repeated sprint training, you want doing it outside, I'd suggest first probably doing it on a hill, but then if you're on a flat surface like this, which is fantastic for training, especially a football field like this or going on an AstroTurf, doing it with a parachute on the back, fantastic way to reduce them impact forces whilst also increasing the demand on that lower body, which will then try and improve them high intensity adaptations. Increasing that lower body demand, which will spike muscular acidosis, which will help you stimulate them high intensity adaptations. So we've got some plank variations now where Teofimo is holding this for, well, the clip is about a minute long, so he could be doing this for minutes and minutes and minutes, and all what he's doing is changing that grip position, that hand position, alternating between hands, elbows, and I think this is a really effective way to be doing a plank. Often when you're doing a plank, especially in this position, the shoulders can end up taking over. So when the shoulders take over, it reduces activation of the core. If you keep changing that hand position, it kind of freshens up your arms, but is still increasing that core activation. So I really like this from Teofimo as he changes from the elbows to the hands, starts doing some kind of knees to the side. This is getting his obliques fired up as well. Some twisting again, obliques are fired up, and constantly changing it will help him maintain that kind of core hold for longer. And this is fantastic for increased time under tension, strength, endurance, which are beneficial in reducing lower back pain, but also maintaining or increasing trunk muscle mass of the core, which we know is important for punching power. Okay, so we've got bench press here. I expected some big things. What's going on here? We've got some pressing, some leg action, bit of circus stuff, I think. I don't know whether he's just doing this for show. Doing it like this is absolutely pointless. Yeah, probably challenging the core a little bit, but core exercises, you need to be doing a minimum 20-30 seconds. And he's done that for about 15 seconds there. On the pressing, not got significant weight load on there, and he's not pressing it with speed and intent. So this isn't going to transfer into increases in upper body hand speed and rate of force development. So it's a little bit in no man's land here, stuck between two different adaptations. That brings me on to like a practical point, is to make sure that you're going towards the adaptation that you're actually targeting, but also foot position during a bench press is important. Now, if an athlete is struggling with their range or struggling with their core strength whilst doing a pressing action and they find it hard on their lower back, I would go feet on the bench or be doing a floor press where they can get their feet tucked in, get their core tense and lower back against the bench. If they don't have that issue, I'd always go feet on the floor because this creates a stronger foundation to press from. And that's what we're wanting to do, wanting to try and increase the amount of load, or we want to increase the amount of force that we can produce during that pressing action, because then that will transfer into gains in upper body rate of force development. Will then transfer into faster and harder punches. Teofimo here doing a machine row, which I love to see. Fantastic technique here as he's using the chest support to lock it in, and then he's getting full range of motion by rotating, and that's really lengthening the lats. Then we're providing some rotational performance gains here by rotating in, really squeezing into the armpits there and maximizing that contraction of the lats and upper back muscles. So this is fantastic to see. It's great to see him using the machine row as well. Now, weight machines often like pushed to the side for strength and conditioning. I actually like weight machines and like using them for different reasons and different stages, particularly in strength foundations where we're increasing that volume load. It's very effective when trying to put in them higher volume efforts. I particularly like it for single leg exercises such as single leg press, but particularly like it for doing like some sort of back exercises. Boxers struggle with postural stability. That affects their ability to do pull-ups, and it affects them to do like kind of single arm rows. A lot of our pulling exercises either done on the cables, or we'll do a prone row where we're supported by laying prone on a bench. So that's why in a gym where we've got a range of different machines, I like using stuff like lat pull down and also doing these machine rows as well, because you can really load up and isolate them back muscles, which are really fundamental in protecting the back and the shoulders during high volumes of punching. So it's great to see him doing this here. As well, doing a variation where doing single arm because there's an imbalance between left and right, and also getting that little bit extra rotation, increase that activation of the lats and upper back muscles. So we've got the medicine ball burpee to slam, a fantastic exercise, whether that's for speed and power, but mainly what we use it for at Boxing Science is part of our conditioning circuits. And the reason why is because it has 3 really high force, high speed actions. You've got the burpee, you've got the jump, and then you've got the slam. With these 3 actions being really fast and explosive, this can really stimulate increases in heart rate and also increases in muscular acidosis, depending what adaptation you're going for, whether that's muscle buffering / peripheral adaptations or you're going for heart rate adaptations. Either way, it's a fantastic exercise to put into your circuit conditioning. Okay guys, so that's the end of the Boxing Science Reacts episode of Teofimo Lopez, a fantastic athlete. I can't wait to see his next fight. These Boxing Science Reacts videos have been really popular, and we've actually looked at some of the analytics behind it. And at the moment, we've got 68% of people that watch our videos aren't subscribers to the channel yet. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber yet, if you could hit that subscribe button or hit the like button, it'll really support the growth of the Boxing Science YouTube channel and will help us be able to develop more content like this, which will help the boxing and combat sports community. And if you're new to the Boxing Science YouTube channel and you haven't seen these Boxing Science Reacts videos yet, we've got a range of different athletes that we've already covered, from Bivol, Beterbiev, Canelo, Deontay Wilder, Tank Davis, Terence Crawford, and a load more champions, the past, present, and also future as well. So go check them out. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully see you on the next episode of Boxing Science Reacts.